Alexa, play WVTC Radio Skills.
Would you like to play WVTC Radio Network?
Absolutely. Download.
We have to be honest and upfront about what it is that you want, and then it's also in that piece of talking about your expectations.
Fred, he's henpecked. I always say there's nothing wrong with henpecked as long as you protect that.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning for Real Inspiration Radio. I am Minister Marquise Holyfield. I'm super excited to be with you all this morning. If you notice, I am solo this morning. Unfortunately, Bishop had some things he had to do today. So you just got me this morning. So I'm super excited to be with you all on this Saturday morning. We got a fun-filled show for you all. Super excited to tell you all what's going on. So as you know how we do, first thing we do is in the news, we will have our relationship conversation, and then we'll wrap it up with a little bit of talking about faith and how God has really blessed us in this season. So let's start the show. So first thing I want to say to you all today is in the news that we noticed that most of you all noticed that in the news you would have saw that this morning that we saw in Israel, there were 4 hostages that were released after the airstrikes that Israel had done from Hamas in central Gaza. So we're thanking God that the 4 people that were released were rescued from central Gaza from the terrorists of Hamas that were kidnapped back in October. So we're thanking God for that. We also ask you all to continue to pray for central Gaza and Gaza itself. While they're doing those different airstrikes, over 50 people were also killed while they were doing the rages, going back and forth into the buildings to try to look for the people. So we're thankful for God that people were rescued, but we're asking God to continue to give peace as so that the civilians are not suffering in the wake of Israel trying to get people out and to be able to put control back into the Gaza Strip. So we just ask y'all to continue to keep praying. We also, on a lighter note, wanted to talk about, on this Thursday, June 6th, was the 80th anniversary of V-Day. So you notice that there's been a lot of celebrations around V-Day. President Biden has been currently right now, he's in Normandy, he's in France, celebrating V-Day and some other political pieces. And so we just want to take note for the 225 men that stormed the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, that helped to end World War II. Without their help and without their support, we don't know what would have actually happened. And we're just grateful for the servicemen that gave their lives so that we can continue to have democracy and freedom today. And President Biden said in his speech earlier on yesterday that with that, he wanted to remind the American people, remind the world that we stand for democracy and that we stand for freedom for all. And so I want us to continue to keep that in mind and continue to pray for our armed forces as they continue to do their work every day to make sure that freedom and democracy is around the globe. And next in the news, we wanted to remind everybody, it is NBA Finals time. Hey, y'all know me and Bishop are super excited when it comes to NBA Finals time. So, we love basketball, we love football. So we know the first game with the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks was on Thursday night, June 6th. And we know that Kyrie and Luka did a phenomenal job. They just couldn't pull it out for this very first game. Porzingis actually came back and he did a phenomenal job for the Boston Celtics. So the fact that he's just such a good job, is one of the things I was talking to my friends about and my significant other. I was like, I didn't realize he was just that good of a point guard and that good of, blocking shots and so forth. And you really didn't realize how much his presence was missed in the playoffs until you got to this final game and realized, oh my God, he was everywhere. So we know the next game for Boston and Dallas Mavericks will be this Sunday. So we're super excited just to see what that looks like and see who comes out with the win. We know that this is going to be an exciting game, exciting series, because it's youth as well as wisdom, a lot of talent and a lot of heart on both teams. So this is going to be an exciting series. I'm super glad to see where this series actually comes out. We'll see how it goes, everyone. Also wanted to talk to you all about really supporting the WNBA. The WNBA season has started, and actually the games have been really great. And so I want to encourage us to continue to support the women that is also doing the sport. We hear a lot about the NBA and the support that they get, the endorsements and so forth. But in order for the women to get that same support and that same luster, we need to watch the games, attend the games, and support the games. And so I'm happy to say that the NBA season has definitely started. And so the NBA season has definitely started, and we want everyone to be able to support. So last night, we know that the Indiana Fever and the Washington Mystics played. Indiana Fever did a phenomenal game. Caitlin Clark is on the Indiana Fever, and we saw such great things. Thanks, Kevin, for reaching out. And so it's one of those things that we are starting to see that there's more interest in more game, and the game was phenomenal. It was a very close game. They almost was tied up last night. So we want to support. I know that there's a lot more games, so I just want to give you all a heads up. So if you didn't know, you want to catch a game, if waiting for some games to come about, especially since the NBA Finals game won't be until tomorrow. There are 3 games that are happening today. So a great opportunity. So the Liberty and the Suns play today at noon. So right after our broadcast, y'all can go watch them play. Also the Dream and the Sky. That's our team, Chicago Sky. That's our team. They play at 4:00 today. Let's come on and be able to support. And then the Mystics and Liberty play tomorrow, and the Mercury and the Wings play tomorrow as well. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. for the Mercury and the Wings, and the Liberty and the Mystics play at 2 p.m. tomorrow. So let's give that same support and luster that we give to our NBA Finals. Same thing to our WNBA women. They deserve the support as well. So putting that out there, really enjoying our sports season as we go about. Also wanted to just really talk about. So also in the news, you might have realized that Kia is back in the news again. They have done a recall for 460,000 Tellurides. So if you have a 2020 through a 2024 Telluride, you might want to take it back in. There's a recall for a certain part. That's something that could be combustible in your car. So we want everyone, hey Latrice, how are you? Happy Saturday. We want you all to go make sure you take your cars back. If you have a 2020 to 2024, yes, Kia again, girl. I know we got to pray for the Kia company, but the Kia company has recalled 460,000 vehicles. They're all Tellurides. From years 2020 to 2024. So please go back and take in your Kia vehicles and get your full recall fixed. It is fixed for free. We want y'all to be safe out there. So just make sure you do that. Also, we wanted to talk about too. So those of you who are big Wheel of Fortune people, I grew up on Wheel of Fortune, love Wheel of Fortune. The host of Wheel of Fortune, Pat Sajak, has hosted that show for 41 years, y'all. So for 41 years, he has hosted the show, and we now realize he's retiring. So after 41 years, he spent his last wheel. And so Pat got to say goodbye to everybody last night for the very last Wheel of Fortune with Pat Sajak. This summer, you'll see a bunch of reruns, and then coming later this year, the new host will be Ryan Seacrest, you all. So we'll welcome Ryan Seacrest to Wheel of Fortune. Say bye to Pat Sajak for all the wonderful times that he has gave us on the show. And we ask you happy retirement, Pat. also wanted to talk about just spend a little bit of time to talk about this, you all. So the New York governor has put this bill into place where she wants to stop the algorithms that are sent to children on their phones for their social media. She's saying that many children have become this very addictive type way of being on social media, and it's because the algorithms keep feeding them all the things that they've been looking at. So she's proposing a bill right now to have it banned so that they can only get a limited amount. And then parents can continue to put the parental guidelines on their children's social media pages so that they're not glued to the phones and to the social media outlets and so forth. We know that with social media being out there, our children are very less likely to go outside. They're less likely to play. They're less likely to do a lot of the sports things. We know that we've seen a lot of obesity and different things rise up and so forth because of the consonants. And then the main piece of it is they put the bill out is for the mental health of our youth. They're saying that we're noticing because of social media and the different things that's happening with social media that our youth really have been struggling because they're constantly looking at different information and different things. The bullying, good morning, Franklin. They're looking at all the information and so forth. And Latrice says that's good, but parents need to be to do their part for sure. Parents definitely need to do their part. And so we want everybody to be mindful of the fact that this is a bill that New York is proposing. We'll see if it actually gets to pass, and then how other states will come into play to continue to do this. But we do ask parents to be mindful of what it is that your children are watching and doing. Continue to talk to them about the different images, because we know with social media and we know with the internet and so forth, children can see whatever they want to see unless there's parental guidance on there. And so if you haven't had certain conversations, if you haven't been able to talk to them about what's going on and what they're experiencing, that's a lot of information overload and a lot of things that their young minds are not ready to process. And most importantly, the bullying piece and the mental illness, we really want our children to be able to be at peace and rest and not be overwhelmed and overthinking and anxiousness to come into them. And so I think this is a really good bill that they're putting forth. We'll see if it actually passes through, but we know that it is needed, and a lot of support is definitely around this. Here we're happening right now in New York State. So we'll see if other states actually just come on with it. Okay, y'all. So we're going to talk about the relationship conversation today. So as I am alone today, y'all be my sounding board. So I'm going to pose a couple questions. We're going to talk about a few things, but I need y'all to join in with me and support. As I am working through this process by myself today with our bishop. So our first question for our relationship conversation is really focusing on this necessity to have space in the relationship. And so you're probably like, Marcus, why do we necessarily need space in the relationship? And so I was recently looking at an Instagram post, and it was a young man talking about the need for space in the relationship. And he was talking in the sense of needing space in the relationship, really when it comes to regards to when they're arguing and what the argument is and so forth, and space in the conversation. And it made me really to think about how do we treat our partner when we're in the middle of an argument? How do we do that? Do we give them the space that they need to kind of rest and digress? Because I think one of the things that we don't really think about is when we are engaging in an argument, engaging in a discussion with our significant other, are we not allowing them to speak? I was actually just doing an interview with one of my good friends, and they were talking about the same thing, that she admitted that when she's angry and when she's upset, she's already told her husband that, give her time to cool down, because what may come out of her mouth out without her having the opportunity to cool down, needing that space, she says, I am going to go on the attack. I am going to do things that are harmful. So it's one thing to kind of know yourself and know how you are, but how do you know who your partner is? And so one of those things I think is key and important for us to kind of take this step back and really look at, how do we give space? Does our partner need a day? Does our partner need an hour? Do we need time away? Do we need to be able to walk away? Is our partner hungry? Are they hangry? So that may be why they're not responding in the way that we're doing. Do we need to really focus on, are we listening to what it is our partner is saying while we're having the conversation as well, so that we are not trying to be right in this piece too? And I think so, I want to, hear from you all. Pop in a couple of questions in the comments and so forth. Tell me what it is you all think. But I think for me, one of the things I think space is very needed. In the Instagram post, it really talks about how even Jesus needed time away and what that looked like as well. And I realized, even for me, that when I am in my place where I need some time. Like, everybody needs that mental, emotional time. We talk about this when the person come home from work and you give them that time to kind of decompress from work, but maybe it's more than just work. Do you think it's just healthy to be with your partner the whole time? Is it one of those things that your partner should have an opportunity to, do some of the things on their own and so forth? And, I'm a firm believer in the different ways of engagement. The first way of engagement for me is having time with the Lord, having time by yourself, having time with your significant other, having time with family. But I think those are key and important pieces that we need to be able to do. And having time with friends, that's the fifth one. But I think those are the key things that we need to do for our own mental and emotional health, and realizing how those things can really make the relationship better if we do those things. So I want you all to kind of test it out a little bit. The next time that you and your significant other are having a disagreement, or you realize that you need some space, how do you ask for that? What are some of the ways from you asking that? And asking them, what do they need? Do they need an hour? Do they need the day? Do they need a couple days? How do they process what it is that's going on with them, and how they're able to engage, and what their engagement looks like, and how can they come back to the conversation calm, cool, clear-headed, not in a place to attack, but a place to listen and a place to be open. And I think that's some of the key factors and key things that we definitely want to look forward to and see, and make sure that we have, and that we're able to provide these different things for our significant other. Because I think it's really key and important that if we don't do these things, that we are allowing our emotions to overtake us. And, we talk about that. God has given us emotions, and we know that God never told us that that emotions were wrong. But when He talks about in the scripture that we're not supposed to, that it's okay to be angry, but it's the action after anger that is the key. And I think that's the thing that we all need to talk about and think through as well. Is what are the actions that we're doing while we're angry, doing while we're anxious, doing while we're sleepy, doing while we're lonely, because in those different emotional periods, we do act out in ways that we normally wouldn't act. And then I always say, when you say things in a place of anger, you can't take those things back. It's one of those things that's very hard. You can't can't take those words back. You cannot you can always apologize, but when the words are out there, the words are out there. That seed has already been planted. That seed is already in somebody's ears, and somebody's already in somebody's minds, and so forth. So I think it's key and important for us to really think about this space piece and how it's beneficial in the relationship, and what does that look like in the relationship, and how do we do this, and how do we give this really good piece of support to others around us, and be our best selves as we work this in relationships too. The other piece we wanted to talk a little bit when we talk about our relationship topic too is we wanted to really talk about this notion of, is the relationship really 50-50, y'all? And it's funny, I love my Keon Henderson, and Keon every once in a while will definitely post some things about relationships and so forth. And one of the things he talks about, he said the relationship isn't 50-50. And it's foolish for us to think and to go into it to think that the relationship will be 50-50. And what he says about that is, he says, because at any given moment, I may not have 50% to give you today. I may only have 20. So we're looking at 20, 80-20. I may have 30, 70, the 70-30 piece. And he was like, so it's naive of us and foolish of us to really think that the other person is going to always give 50-50, or on a regular basis get 50-50. It depends on what's going on in life. It depends on what's going on in the relationship itself to determine really if we're able to give that 50-50 to our partner. And so he was like, for us not to set ourselves up for and have unmet expectations and unmet and unrealistic things going on with us, it's important for us to take a step back and realize that, we're not going to always be able to show up for the person like that. We're not going to always do that. Does that mean that our relationships are in danger? Does that mean that we're not in a healthy relationship? No, it's just understanding your partner, going back to that space thing necessarily, understanding your partner and what it is that your partner truly, really needs and how they're thriving. Latrice says she used to think that 50-50 until she watched Tyler Perry's movie and went to counseling. Right, Latrice, you're right. I mean, and I thank you for just saying that and reminding us that we get in our head in these notions that, oh, everything should be 50-50, but it's not going to be 50-50. What if your significant other gets sick and they can't give 50-50? 50-50 is not in their physical makeup or their emotional makeup. What if your significant other is going through anxiety or depression? All these things happens in the relationship, and sometimes they only can give 20%. Are you going to be ready to walk out of the relationship because they only can give 20? And so I think it's important for us to think about this is as we start to really look at the process of our relationships and who we with and the dating and who we're married to really understand, do we understand who they are? Do we understand what their needs are? Do we understand what needs need to be met? And then have we had the conversations about this? Many times I realize that we get into conversations and we get into relationships with people and we haven't had these vital conversations. We haven't talked about, like, what are your needs? What are your roles? What are your expectations of me in a relationship? How do you want your needs to be met? And then, of course, I am very big on the check-in, y'all. Y'all know I want the check-in to happen. I believe every 3 to 6 months you should be doing a check-in. How we doing? And I saw something recently where somebody was talking about the check-ins and they talked about, how can I serve you better? And I think that's the key. A lot of times too, when we're in a relationship and we thinking this through, we're so busy wanting to blame the other person and say, well, you're not doing this or you're not doing this. But it's how we doing? And then how can I serve you better? That intends makes the person more open and ready to engage with you, because you're not blaming them and putting the blame on them, but you're taking the onus of, like, this is what I know where I can improve, what I can do better, and what I can do to make the relationship to continue to thrive and to grow and to be what it is that what we need. And then you allowing the person the opportunity to do the same. And it's that reflection piece. I think that's key and important for us to think through. What is our reflection piece? How are we reflecting through this? How are we reflecting through what the real pieces are and what we need in the relationship, and instead of us again going with our emotions through this dating process? I think it's a lot of times that we haven't really thought certain things through. We looked at, from what our grandparents have done and what their relationships have looked like, or our parents look like, relationships look like, or what the world has told us their relationships will look like, instead of us really thinking about what our own personal needs are. And also looking at how is it backed up in the word? What's the foundation of the word when it comes to relationships, and how we should engage in emotions, and how we should engage in forgiveness, and how we should engage in communication and listening and being a support and encouragement for each other. And when he talks about, love is not boastful, love is not prideful, love is not tit for tat, love doesn't keep a record. Love, so, and I think it's important that we remind ourselves of that when we look at that scripture in Corinthians 13, and really talks about what love is, and for us to really understand that, so that while we're in relationships, we're not using the world systems to define what our relationship will look like, but we're using the godly systems to define what our relationship look like. Thanks, Latrice. When Latrice is out there saying facts, I used to think relationship goals for so many people, including my parents in disappointment. And that's true. And I think the key factor is, I was just interviewing someone yesterday and we were talking about this of how not to compare. I think we get into this comparison phase with each other and look at, our parents, our grandparents, and our aunts and uncles relationships. And then we want that marriage. We want that relationship. You look at, people on TV and how they portrayed in movies and so forth. And they was like, oh, well, she lived in this big house. She got all these different things. Her husband dotes on her and so forth. And we have to take the step back. And this goes for the men too. They look at it and want the different relationships. Oh, I want that relationship. But the key factor is, what did they have to go through to get there? We're in denial when we start to think that the relationship just happens. That you woke up one day, we fall in love, we get together. Okay, we married now. Okay, this is how the relationship is going to be, instead of realizing it has taken work. Some of the best relationships that we have seen, I remember Michelle Obama talking about that there was a picture that everybody was looking at where her and Barack, and everybody was like, oh, relationship goals. And Michelle kind of busted the bubble and came out and was like, oh, the picture y'all talking about 5 minutes before we took that picture, I was just angry with him. And I just put a smile on my face because we had to take a picture, but I was really ready to wring his neck. And so I think it's important for us to start to think about what the relationship looks like for you. You cannot compare what other people are doing and what the world is doing for relationship goals, because they might not have the same relationship goals as you. You may be having you want a God-fearing relationship, a relationship where you guys can pray together to maintain, have communication, have fun, enjoy each other, support each other, intercede on behalf of each other, support each other in goals and dreams, and be that support system, that partnership. Well, other people, that might not be what their relationship goals are. It may appear that way because that may be what you see or what they put on Instagram or what they put on Facebook or what you may see in the street, but you don't know, again, what's going on behind closed doors for them to be able to have that type of relationship. The truth says exactly, and God gives us what we need and not what we want. And I think that's key and important for us to remember that. God does give us what we need and not what we want. A lot of times what we want is not good for us. And I know that's hard for us because our flesh desires to have companionships and partnerships. And we're going to go back to this companionship piece because something else I want to talk about. But companionship and partnerships. But I think it's key and important for us to understand, what type of relationship do we want? How do we want to move? And also, have you gone before your Heavenly Father and asked Him, God, what is it that you have for me as your daughter? What is it that you have for me as your son? Who is the right person that's going to be for me? Who's going to help me to build and help you to glorify your kingdom, God? Who's going to help me to live out my purpose and destiny, God? Who's going to help me to, as we talked about, a week or two ago, we talked about the shape. Pastor Rick Warren talks about the shape of you, your spiritual gifts, your heart, your attitude, your personality, and your experiences. And so it's those pieces. And it's like, who's going to, to do that for you? Who's going to help you to live out your shape? Who's going to help you to do what it is God has called you to do, and do it with joy and happiness and glee in that process, and not be cankerous, and not be constrite, and not be always coming against what it is that you're trying to do, or they're that support system behind the scenes, allowing you to be who God has called you to be and not interfering with that. And so that support looks many different ways, and it's whatever which different way that you need it to be and what you have it called to be. And I think that's key and important for us, and where we need to go and what that looks like for us, and how we need to move when it comes to our relationships. And then when it comes to when us thinking about how do we give the person space, what are our expectations when it comes to individuals, and this notion of 50-50 in relationships, and then this notion of comparison. I think so many people's relationships are failings because they're not giving each other the space. They're not allowing each other to breathe, to not have the rest moment. You think about it, when Jesus ministered all those times, when he ministered, he took time and he went away. And sometimes he went and he sat in the mountain and prayed. Sometimes he went and sat on, sat on the water. But Jesus took time to be restored and renewed. And we need that in our relationships. We need to be restored or renewed. So how do you add that time in? What does that look like for you? I know for me, what that looks like is giving my significant other space, giving him time to process. I know when he gets home from work, he needs, time to go depress and release. And it's also about encouraging him and supporting him in the ways that he needs and having his back. And it's also giving him that alone time. Sometimes you want to go hang out with the guys and go do what he needs to do. And sometimes it's just going for a walk by himself, whatever way, him being able to do his devotional. And then the same thing that he does for me. He's allowing me to have my devotional time and have my time with the Lord, and really have that time and go hang out with my girls and go be by myself, and for helping me and supporting me in all my endeavors and so forth. So it's key and important that we figure out what that is, what that right mix is in our relationships, and how we can best support each other as we go through that. And so I know that it's something that is key for us to talk. It's key for us to really think about. It's some of the things in the forefront when our relationships we don't really think about a lot. And I think it's important that we take the time to reflect. Y'all know I'm really big on reflection, and I think it's key that we reflect on what are we doing. We keep doing the check-ins and we support. And so remember, I told y'all I want to come back to that companionship piece. So I want to see what y'all thought about this. So recently, I saw something on social media that talks about companionship versus partnership. And okay, y'all, I'm just warning y'all, this was a dicey conversation. And so they were saying anybody can have companionship. You can take your girl, you can take your best friend, you can take the neighbor across the street to the movies, out to dinner, to concerts, for a walk with you. Companionship is just anything, where partnership is a whole different animal. And when you talk about relationships, you're not striving for just anyone to be there. For in the companionship realm, you're striving for partnership, for you to have the true person. Good afternoon, Jill. Hi. And so you are striving for partnership to do things, to not only just do things together, but you have a common goal, a common purpose for partnership. And so, as I say, Bishop is on vacay and I'm by myself today, but I want to hear from y'all and really think about it and think about what do you all think about this whole notion about partnership versus companionship, and what are you really looking for in that partnership? So if you are out here, you're single and you're in a dating process, and somebody asks you, okay, what are you looking for in your partner? Do you have that answer? Do you have to ponder and think about it, or do you know right away what it is that you are looking for? And I think it was key and important that they talked about when the whole partnership piece is just be mindful about what it is that you ask for. Because if you're just asking for a companion, that's all you're going to get. If you are going to really ask for partnership, then you have to be ready to put in the work for partnership. And partnership looks so different for everyone. So it's one of those things, we talk about being each other's, best friend or being friends. It's not may not necessarily be the best friend, but being friends. Being able to have that level of communication, the level of vulnerability, the level of trust. And we also talk about intimacy. And so we're not talking about the physical intimacy. We're talking about the other pieces of intimacy, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, pieces, the intellectual pieces of intimacy, because those things are key and important. Because remember, intimacy is see into me. So you want the person to see more than just your physical pieces of you. You want them to see the heart of you. You want them to see the compassion of you. You want to see the broken you. Bishop preached on Sunday talking about that we still thrive on the broken pieces, that God can take all of our broken pieces and still take us to our destiny and to our purpose. And so I think it is key and important for us to really think about, what do they look like when they're broken? What do they look like when they're upset? What do they look like when they enjoy? What do they look like when they're going through? How do they build character and perseverance through trials and tribulations? Because we know in the relationships, there are going to be some. There are going to be trials and tribulations. There's not going to be a perfect relationship. And so I think it's important, as we start to look at our partner and look at the partnership, what does that look like? And how are we feeding that? And then what expectations or what pieces have we put out there for the person to know, this is what I want? Because again, we talked about in the dating process, we don't want nobody out there wasting their time, and I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but one of my good friends, we were talking yesterday, and she was talking about the different pieces of relationships. She says that right now so many people are in phase one, which is Burger King, have it your way. She said, and then the next phase of it is it may not be necessarily Burger King, have it your way, but it's like, okay, I'm good for right now. He or she is the right time person. And then it builds into, okay, we're in a relationship, she said, but you don't want to be the placeholder. You don't want to be the one that they use you or use your relationship that you are in to become the best woman, the best man, the best everything. And then you sit in an apartment phase for so long, where they won't move to commitment, when your ultimate goal is, we say, the house, the mortgage, the marriage, the lifetime commitment with you. And then they be with you for 3 or 4 years in a relationship and won't move. And then boom, after they leave you 6 months later, they marry somebody else, and then they're in the commitment lifetime phase. And so I want us to really think about that as we're dating, as we're in relationship. What things are we in? What are we doing? Do we just let everything go? Are we just out here like the world, just doing everything the world does? We out here in this season of physical body pieces. Everybody want to get the Brazilian butt lift, and everybody want to have small waist and all those other different things. And I was actually just doing an interview with someone, with one of my close friends, talking about this, and it was a male, and he was talking about that. He was like, there's 5 or 6. He was like, I saw 5 or 6 Brazilian butt lifts today. He was like, I got multiple choices of those. He was like, what is going to make you be the one that I'm interested in, that makes you stand out? He was like, yes, of course. And, Bishop always say this, of course, there's always going to have to be some level of attraction, physical attraction, chemistry with the person, but that cannot be the only thing that grounds the relationship. You have to have substance. We have to be able to have communication. We have to have a level of respect for each other and others. We have to be able to see each other in multiple avenues of dating, in the dating process. Because as yesterday, as I talked to someone too, they were talking about how we have gotten away from the idea that marriage is the thing. We've let the world tell us that, oh, you can have the situationship, or you can be in companionship, or you can be in all these other different relationships. But we haven't really, somewhat, not all, but people have walked away from this idea that marriage is the thing. And, I'm just going to say it. Marriage is coming back, y'all. It's coming back. For many of us, it has not left, because that's always been our goal. But the idea of the way that the world is moving is not the way that we as the body of Christ should be moving. And I think it's important for us to remember that, and to understand that our goal is always still is going to be married. Latrice said, say that, sis. But I was just saying, it's like that's the way that we shouldn't be. The word of God tells us that we are in the world, but not of the world. And in the world means to help us to be the example so that people can see what a life of Christ can look like, but not of the world is us not doing everything the world does. And I think it's important for us to be mindful. None of us are perfect. The Bible also says we all have fallen short in sin. And Jill says she's in agreement. Says we all have fallen short. Say, yeah, we all gonna have our falls. We all gonna have our moments. We all gonna have that season where God is dealing with us and healing us and restoring us from different places and different things. That is key and important. But I want us to remember that the goal is us to remember that as I say in my new book, and we'll talk a little bit about this next week. But as I say in my new book, Happy Life, Finding Love in Yourself Without Compromise, that in the world of twerking, Instagram posts, thinking that you got to be everything for everyone, there still is godly women out here. And there are godly women that want to be in true relationship. And there are godly men out here that want godly women. So I don't want us to walk around here as a body of Christ to think that it don't exist. It exists. We do, as one of my good friends was telling me yesterday, we used the analogy. She said, think about it. If you had got a choice between going to having dinner at Burger King or having dinner at the steakhouse, you want the steak. And so she said, so if you got to wait for 30 minutes, and we know figuratively it may be more than 30 minutes, but if you got to wait till God send them, just wait till God send them. Allow us to don't fall for the things that just so you can say that you have someone, companionship, and not have what you truly desire, which is partnership. And I think it's important for us to continue to remember that is the goal. That's the end goal. That's what we all striving to do and what we want to do. And it's a process. And, those of you who may be discouraged, those of you who may be wondering and questioning, God, when is my time? Know that your time is coming. Know that God has already ordained it. He's already found him or her for you. All you have to do is continue to worship, honor God, and thank him in the advance for it, and wait for your good thing to come. And I think it's important for us to remember that and understand in this season that is what we're looking for, and that we're not going to settle for anything less but what God has for us, which is his best. And so, I say that because I really want us to really think through this and really think through the dating process. As I've been working on the new project, the book, and so forth, I've had so many people to talk through what they're going through. So many people that want to give up, so many people that's in a bitter place, and so many people that's in a healing place. And they're like, well, I don't know, I'm afraid to get out here. And I think it's important for us to really sit through and think through this and say, ask ourselves, if you're in the place where you're ready to date, where you're ready to be out here again, at first I always say, sit with the Lord, ask God how you should move, what that dating process looks like for you. Ask God, God, this is what I got in mind for the mate, but what do you have in mind for the mate for me? Who is he? What does he look like? Or what does she look like? If you the male, and just really start to think about those different things. What is it that I need, oh God? And then really go into prayer for that. I'm big on the journaling, asking God. I remember when it was my season and my time, when I went through my preparation period and so forth, I wrote in a journal out to God everything that I wanted him to be, and what what I wanted him to be, what I wanted it to look like. And it took some time because God was peeling back layers and layers off of me of things that I had not healed from. Things that I thought that I was like, oh, I'm good. God was like, oh, no, you're not. And so I think it's important for us to first know that and know who we are in him. And I'll never forget this. One of my really good friends, Quita, was basically said, until you love yourself, until you know that God has made you the prize, that you are valued, that you love yourself, that the person is only coming to enhance you, not to make you happy, that you are strong, you are confident, you are reassured, you are a child of the King, you are part of the royal priesthood. Until you love yourself and have this foundational love with God, it's not going to happen. It only happens when you have reached the point where you love you and you have a relationship with God and you love God. And that you and God can talk back and forth together and build this thing together for you to be able to love someone else. It's tell everybody the foundational pieces for you to be able to be in a relationship, and to be able to love someone else comes from you loving God and comes from that foundational piece. And so I think it's key and important for us to really think about that and asking God to heal us and giving us that time. When we talked about that necessary space in relationships, how do you make sure that you have that necessary space with you? But you have time to reflect, but you have time to think about who you are and what your needs are and how they need to be met and what your goals are, and then have that time with the Lord for him to kind of guide you through and to pour into you what it is that you need for the fruit to be able to be bared. And so I think those are key and important things for us to really just focus on and think through and make sure that we are literally at that point of understanding us. And then once we understand us, then it's having a relationship with God and understanding how he's pouring into us and helping us to develop. And one of the other things we talk about, um, in the new pieces, we start talking about a little bit about vulnerability. And so when we talk about vulnerability, we talk about the vulnerability of God. And so, do you have that vulnerability of God? Do you have the ability to cry before your Father, and say, "Abba, Father, Daddy," and just lay it out on the table? The Word of God tells us to cast our cares before Him, um, and to pour our heart out to him. And he said that he will comfort the brokenhearted, but you have to also to be brokenhearted before him. You have to be vulnerable before him before the comfort comes in. And I think that's key and important for us to understand that and to know, how do we move in that? What does that look like for us? In the relationship piece and having that space and time and being able to grow. I think all those things are just really key and important in how we continue to go through this process and so forth. And and I always say too, it's not going to be easy, y'all. If we looking for the quick fix, it's not going to happen. It's a process. And if you all anything like me, I hate the process. I hate going through the process. I hate it with a passion. But God has shown me that the process is necessary. It is necessary for us to be the Proverbs 31:1. It is necessary for us to be who we are, need to be as the wife, as the mother. It's necessary for just, even in when we talk about the men, it's necessary for them. Latrice said it never is. I absolutely hate the process. Yes, it never is. It's never easy, and it don't end. And I think that's important for us to realize that even in relationships, you've been in long-term relationship, in marriage, the whole 9 yards. It's a process because you're growing in every season. Every season that you're in, you're growing. The marriage is growing, and for you not to expect that your marriage will grow and change, is a fallacy. I think it's something that we're not looking at it with clear eyes. We're looking at it with rose-colored glasses. We're looking at, as we talked about the last time, the fairy tale piece. And I think that's key and important for us to remember that we're not in the fairy tale. The fairy tale tells us, and they live happy ever after, but it never talks about the arguments. It never talks about the disagreements. It never talks about when the money is low. It didn't talk about when the children were sick or when the spouse was sick. It didn't talk about when somebody lost their job. And I think it's key and important for us to realize that the struggles are going to happen, or when God causes the person to go into ministry and do that shift. It's a whole lot of different things that happens in this journey called life and in the relationship that we have to be ready for and also embrace. There's going to be those joyous times, but there's going to be those times where we persevere. As Bishop always reminds us and tells us too, that we either coming out of a storm or we getting ready to go into a storm. And my thing is, how are you preparing for both of those? How do you prepare in the relationship to be ready to come out that storm? How do you prepare to be ready to go into that storm to be able to endure? And I think that's key and important. And it brings me to when we want to talk about our spiritual, like our faith based part of the conversation today is really to talk about like walking in faith. And so, just gonna be a little bit transparent with y'all. Just tell my testimony. 6 months ago, I was fully employed, and then I went to work one day, and they told me that my services was no longer needed. I had worked at the place for 6 years, been in this industry for almost 24 years, and it was a shock to the girl system because I was like, "Okay, God, what are we doing now?" And and so I had to walk this place of faith and trust God in this process of like, what are we doing, God? And so I want to encourage someone right now, if you are in the place that I'm in, or in the place of God has told you to leave and God has told you to move in a certain way. And like me, I was a little bit disobedient. I knew a year ago that it was time for me to walk off the job and to do what God has called me to do. But I was very stubborn, and I was also fearful of like, well, how do I do this? Because this is my livelihood. This is what I need to be able to make money to sustain myself. But it was, again, me not having faith in God and trusting him. And so, some of us know is, there's that analogy that sometimes God will send you the three different ways of being. So he'll throw you the pebble and you get a little wave. Then he'll throw the stone and then you get a bigger wave. And then he'll throw the big brick and you get the splash and it overwhelms you. And I think it's important for us to understand and see how God is moving in our life and where God is trying to take us and where God is trying to show us to be. It's been 6 months later, through that 6 months of me really having to trust God for income, trust God to pay bills, trust God to provide. I've never went out. As the word of God said, there's nothing broken, nothing missing, nothing lacking in my life. I am living in overflow and abundance. God blessed me with not one but two businesses. And so one of them was just a dream. It was just a dream. I've always wanted to write. I always had a passion for writing, and God has blessed me to write the second book, and it's getting ready to come out. And God blessed me to have the creativity to be able to start a jewelry line, something that I didn't even think that was even part of my talent. Go back to that shape thing where Rick Warren talks about that shape. And thank you, Latrice, and God said amen. But it's important that I just want to encourage you all, trust in God and know that he will deliver. And if you have faith in him, he said, have faith of a mustard seed. And anybody who ever had a mustard seed, that thing, you can barely pick it up with your thumb, with your fingernail. That's how small a mustard seed is. And that's just how much faith that God is asking us to have in this season and to trust him. And God will provide. When I talk about the doors that have opened up, never in my wildest dreams that I thought that I would be doing what it is that I'm doing now. Got to the place where my jewelry is in a store. Yes, Jill, his grace is sufficient. And it's one of these things where God will take you to places that you never even dreamed of. And if we keep holding on to comfortability instead of holding on to God's hand and understand that he's our comfort in the uncomfortableness. And I think we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's the place that sometimes we as Christians struggle with, because we feel like, okay, I'm used to this. I know this place was mentally and emotionally and physically killing me, but I'm gonna hold on to this because this is all I know. Instead of saying, God, you are all I know. I know what your word says. Your word says that you never lie, and that you're not a man that you would lie, that your word never comes back void. That I just need to remind you of your word. If I hold up clean hands, you hold no good thing from me. That your word said that you provide all my needs according to your riches in Christ Jesus. If I have the faith in you, God, and you say faith of the things that faith of some of the things that are hoped for, things that are not seen. And you said it is impossible to please God without faith. And we all have to walk this journey of faith. Your faith journey, your faith walk may be something completely different from mine, but I am encouraging you all today that God is faithful. And he always faithful. He will provide every need. Whatever it is that you may be going through, whatever the struggle may be, God got you and God will provide for you. And God will blow your mind. He will take the thing that you thought was this little thing and open it up and to make it this huge thing. And as Jill say, you have the time to live and walk in your purpose. Yes, because I'm going to tell you right now, I've been more happy. First of all, I've been healthier, happier since I walked in my purpose and trusting God for my purpose and trusting God for my everyday. Just like he said, he take care of the birds and they don't have to work. He said he clothes the lilies and all those things I think is key and important for us to remember. That is what God is doing just for us. And if we just trust him. And so I just hope I have encouraged someone today to continue to walk this walk of faith and trust God and know that he is a healer and a deliverer. He will provide for you. He will carry you. He will protect you. And he will give you rest and restoration. And he will restore you and make you new and make you whole and ready for the thing that he's always called you to be. And look at the time, y'all. It is that time again. Time has gone by. And I just want to say thank you all for enjoying and spending time with me this morning. Thank you all for the support, Latrice and Jill and Franklin and everybody that has been on today. I'm not used to being without Bishop, but we made it through, y'all. We thank God. And thank you all for all of y'all's support and your encouragement. Want to remind you all, please don't forget that please come and join us for church on tomorrow. You know how we do. We do a phenomenal church service every Sunday at 11 a.m. at 9134 South Cottage Grove, Revival in the Land. We welcome you. We are the place that will welcome you with joy and happiness. We welcome you with a heart and a hug. We appreciate you. We thank God for you. Thank you, Latrice, and thank you for just being here and support. And we just also want to say thank you for joining us. And then this Sunday is also Sunday school, so we have a dynamic. And I'm telling y'all, she a powerful woman of God, Sister Pam. For Sunday school, she be blowing it out the water. Sunday school starts at 10 a.m. And we always give a nice refreshment. Come and fellowship with us, spend time with us, and enjoy us right at Revival in the Land. And again, that's Revival in the Land Missionary Baptist Church at 9134 South Cottage Grove. And as I always say, don't meet us there, beat us there. And Jill, I just want to say thank you. You said you have to speak and declare his word back to him. Amen. That is true. And it's been a joy and a pleasure to be with you all. Have a great day. I'll see you all next Saturday.
Go to your Apple or Google Play Store and download the WVTC Gospel Radio app today. You can also say, Alexa, play WVTC Radio Skills.
Would you like to play WVTC Radio Network?
Absolutely. Download it today.
Views made on the preceding program are not those of WVTC Radio, iNetworks Communications, or their financial supporters.
Winning victory through Christ, WVTC Allsip Chicago, and iNetworks Communication Station.